Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're venturing into a world that's both eerie and captivating. Ghost towns.
Yeah, these abandoned places, they really capture the imagination, don't they?
They do. I mean, think about it. Deserted streets, buildings frozen in time, each one with a story to tell, like a snapshot of a moment in history.
It's like stepping into a time capsule.
Exactly. And today, we're going to unpack a collection of these time capsules, 10 ghost towns from all over the world. Each one deserted for different reasons, some from natural disasters, others from economic collapse, even a nuclear meltdown.
Oh, wow. Okay, so where are we starting?
Well, we'll start with a pretty chilling example.
Sure.
Pripyat in Ukraine. You know, the city forever linked to the Chernobyl disaster.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's a bustling city built for the workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. But in 1986, after the explosion, it was evacuated in just a matter of hours.
It's hard to even imagine having to leave everything behind like that.
It is. And today, Pripyat stands frozen in time. An eerie reminder of the sheer power of nuclear energy and what can happen when it goes wrong.
I remember seeing pictures of Pripyat, like the amusement park that never opened. It's so surreal.
It is. So what's the situation there now? Is it still completely off limits?
The exclusion zone around Chernobyl, including Pripyat, is still heavily restricted because of radiation, yeah. But there are ongoing scientific studies happening there, and even limited tourism is allowed in some areas.
Really? So people can actually visit Pripyat?
Yeah, but only with special permission and in designated areas. It's pretty tightly controlled.
I can imagine. It really makes you think, though. Will Pripyat always be a ghost town? Or is there any chance it could be reclaimed in the future?
That's the question, isn't it? The long-term impact of the disaster is still unfolding.
Absolutely. All right, for our next ghost town, we're shifting gears completely. We're heading to a place that was once a glamorous tourist hotspot, Varosha in northern Cyprus.
Oh, I've heard of that. Isn't it like a modern-day ghost town?
Exactly. Imagine this. Pristine beaches, luxury hotels, vibrant nightlife that was Varosha until 1974. Then the Turkish invasion of Cyprus happened, and the city was abandoned.
Just like that. Everyone had to leave.
Pretty much. And the most striking thing is that it remains inaccessible to this day, frozen in time because of a political stalemate.
So, a place built for leisure and pleasure now stands deserted and off-limits. What a contrast.
It is. And it really highlights how quickly things can change. You know, earlier you mentioned that ghost towns can be seen as time capsules. What specific insights can be gained from Varosha in that sense?
Well, I think Varosha offers a unique perspective on the complexities of tourism and development in the 20th century. It raises questions about the sustainability of resort towns and the impact of political instability on thriving communities.
So it's not just about the physical remains, it's about understanding the forces that shaped its fate.
Right, and the challenges of preserving cultural heritage amidst conflict. It's a reminder that even places built for leisure and pleasure can become casualties of larger forces.
Forces beyond our control. Our next stop takes us to a ghost town that carries a much heavier weight, a chilling reminder of the horrors of war. Oradour-sur-Glane in France.
I've heard of that, but I don't know much about it.
It stands as a somber testament to the brutality of World War II. In 1944, this village was the site of a horrific massacre where 642 inhabitants, including women and children, were murdered by a German Waffen-SS company.
Oh my goodness, that's awful.
Instead of rebuilding, the French government made the decision to preserve the ruins as a memorial.
So it's like a permanent reminder of what happened there.
Exactly. A haunting reminder of the devastating consequences of hatred and violence. It's almost impossible to fathom the pain and loss experienced in that village.
I can't even imagine.
And it stands as it did that day. But even in the face of such tragedy, there's a certain power in preserving these sites, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Preserving sites like Oradour-sur-Glane allows us to confront the dark chapters of history head-on, to remember the victims and to learn from the past so we don't repeat those mistakes.
To never forget. Okay, for our next destination, we're traveling to a ghost town that looks like something out of a science fiction film. Hashima Island, also known as Gunkanjima in Japan.
Gunkanjima, that name sounds familiar.
It means Battleship Island. This tiny island, surrounded by a concrete seawall, was once a bustling coal mining hub. Imagine towering concrete buildings packed tightly together on this little island.
Oh, right. I think I saw a picture of that once. It looked almost abandoned, like a concrete jungle.
And that's exactly what it is now, abandoned. But in its prime, it housed a densely packed community of workers and their families.
Wow. What was it like to live on this island so isolated?
Well, the coal mining on Hashima Island was incredibly demanding and dangerous. Miners faced cramped conditions, long hours, and constant risks. But despite those hardships, it also fostered a strong sense of community.
So like a little world unto itself.
Exactly. It had its own schools, shops, even a hospital, all crammed into this tiny space. It was a microcosm of Japanese society at the time.
It's amazing how they created a whole community in such a unique and challenging environment.
It is. But sadly, as Japan shifted away from coal to petroleum in the 1960s, Hashima Island's mines closed down.
And the island was abandoned.
In 1974, yes. Today, it stands as a fascinating relic of Japan's industrial past. Those crumbling concrete structures are a stark reminder of the impermanence of human endeavors, even those built on such a grand scale.
Wow, it's like a concrete ghost ship.
That's a great way to put it. And the coolest thing is that it's open to tourists now.
So you can actually visit Hashima Island.
You can. You can walk through the abandoned buildings and just imagine the hustle and bustle of daily life that once filled those spaces.
That must be a surreal experience.
It is. Okay, our next ghost town takes us to a place where nature's reclaiming power is on full display. Kolmanskop in Namibia. It was a diamond mining town, and now it's literally being swallowed by the desert.
Swallowed by the desert? What does that even look like?
Imagine this. In the early 20th century, during the Diamond Rush, this German colonial town had grand architecture. A hospital, a ballroom, even a casino. Today, these structures stand half buried in sand.
So you can see these once elegant buildings with sand dunes sweeping through their rooms.
Exactly. It's like nature is slowly reclaiming what was once hers. You can almost hear the echoes of laughter and music in that ballroom, which is now filled with nothing but the whispering wind.
That's such a powerful image, isn't it? The remnants of human luxury and ambition being slowly reclaimed by the unforgiving desert. It really makes you think.
It does. It reminds us that even in the most desolate landscapes, there are stories to be found, stories that speak to the ebb and flow of human endeavors. And speaking of stories, our next ghost town is in the heart of the American West. Bannock, Montana, a classic gold rush town frozen in time.
Oh, a Wild West ghost town. I've always wanted to see one of those.
Bannock transports you right back to that era. Saloons, prospectors, the allure of striking it rich. Gold was discovered there in 1862, and like many gold rush towns, it experienced a boom and then a slow decline.
So what's left of it now?
The amazing thing is that much of its original character remains intact. It's a well-preserved National Historic Landmark now. You can walk into the old saloons, see the old hotel, even the jail and the gallows.
It's like stepping onto a movie set.
It is.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about the people who walked those streets, the hopes and dreams they carried, and the legacy they left behind. Bannock had a tangible link to that past.
You can almost feel the spirit of the Wild West lingering in the air. Okay, so where to next?
Our next ghost town is perched precariously on a hilltop in Italy. It's Krakow, and it has a tale that intertwines nature's power and human resilience.
Krakow. Tell me more.
Imagine a medieval village clinging to the edge of a cliff. It's visually stunning. But Krakow's story is one of resilience in the face of natural forces. It was plagued by a series of earthquakes and landslides over centuries.
Wow, that must have been terrifying for the people living there.
It was, and those seismic events, along with agricultural challenges and economic decline, ultimately led to its abandonment in 1963.
So the residents had to leave their ancestral homes behind. That's so sad.
It is a heartbreaking story.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing. Even though it's a ghost town, Krakow hasn't been forgotten.
What do you mean?
Well, its haunting beauty has attracted filmmakers and photographers, even tourists. It's become a cinematic backdrop and a destination for those seeking a glimpse into Italy's past.
So even in abandonment, there can be a resurgence of interest.
Exactly. It's like a new chapter in the village's story. All right, our journey through ghost towns isn't over yet. Next, we're heading to Belchite in Spain, a town forever marked by the Spanish Civil War.
Oh, that's conflict I don't know much about.
Belchite offers a sobering reminder of the devastating impact of war. This once thriving town was completely destroyed during the Battle of Belchite in 1937. What was left was just rubble and ruin. But instead of rebuilding, the dictator Francisco Franco decided to preserve the ruins as a war memorial.
A war memorial, so they left it as it was after the battle.
They did. It's a chilling testament to the brutality of that conflict. and the decision to preserve it has been both praised and criticized over the years.
I can see how it would be controversial. It's a powerful reminder of the horrors of war, but it must also be a painful reminder for those who live through it.
It is a complex issue, but Belchai stands as a challenging site, prompting reflection on the complexities of history, memory, and the enduring impact of conflict.
It's a reminder that these ghost towns aren't just physical spaces. They're entangled with complex historical narratives.
Exactly. All right, for our next ghost town, we're traveling back in time to a place that was once a major center of power and culture, Ashnai, located in present-day Turkey.
Ashnai, I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Ani is a fascinating example of a lost city. It was the capital of a medieval Armenian kingdom, and at its peak, it rivaled even Constantinople.
Wow, that's incredible. What happened to it?
Well, it boasted impressive architecture, including palaces, churches, and fortifications. It was a hub of trade and cultural exchange. But over time, it fell into decline due to a combination of factors: invasions, earthquakes, and shifting trade routes.
So it was a gradual decline, not a sudden event.
Right. And today, Ani is just ruins. But those ruins are a treasure trove of information for archaeologists and historians.
So even though it's a ghost town, it's still telling us stories about the past.
Exactly. And those stories remind us that even the most powerful empires and cities can fade into obscurity. Which brings us to our final stop on this first part of our ghost town tour, a place with a much more recent and heartbreaking history, Agdam in Azerbaijan.
Agdam, what's its story?
Agdam is a stark reminder of the devastating impact of modern conflicts. This town, once home to tens of thousands of people, was captured and destroyed during the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict in 1993.
That wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't. And the entire population was forced to flee, leaving behind a ravaged landscape that has remained largely uninhabited ever since.
It's a tragic tale of displacement and loss.
It is. And it raises important questions about the long-term consequences of war, not just in terms of human suffering, but also in the destruction of cultural heritage and the disruption of communities and ways of life.
It's a reminder that even in the 21st century, conflict can have devastating consequences.
It can. So we've explored 7 ghost towns so far, each with a unique story, each abandoned for different reasons. From the chilling aftermath of a nuclear disaster in Pripyat to the political stalemate frozen in time in Varosha, the haunting legacy of war in Ordor, Siglain, and Belchite, the echoes of lost civilizations in Hashima Island and Ani, the recent tragedy of Agdam, and the slow-burning environmental disaster of Centralia. These places offer a glimpse into the complexities of human history, the power of nature, and the fragility of the built environment.
They really do. And it makes you think about all the different forces that can shape our world and the traces they leave behind.
They do. And as we continue our deep dive, we're going to delve deeper into the themes that connect these seemingly disparate places, the forces that shape our world, the stories that linger in abandoned spaces, and the lessons we can learn from the past as we navigate the present and build towards the future.
Sounds like a plan. You know, it's fascinating how these ghost towns show how fragile human settlements really are.
It really is. We like to think of our cities and towns as permanent, right? But they can change so much, so fast. It makes you wonder, what could cause the places we live in today to become ghost towns in the future?
Well, climate change is definitely a big one. Imagine rising sea levels, extreme weather events, resource scarcity. All those things could displace people and lead to the abandonment of whole cities.
That's a scary thought. And what about technological disruption? Could that play a role?
Oh, absolutely. Think about automation, AI, how those things are already reshaping industries. What happens to towns reliant on those jobs that get replaced?
Kind of like what happened to Hashima Island when the coal industry declined.
Exactly. As technology keeps evolving, who knows what the future holds?
It's both exciting and a little bit unsettling, isn't it? But for now, let's stick with our exploration of ghost towns. Up next, we're going back to the U.S. to Centralia, Pennsylvania. This town has a story that's both unique and tragic.
Centralia? Now, that's a name I haven't heard in a while.
It's a classic example of what can happen when things go wrong, the unintended consequences of human actions, you know. What was once a busy coal mining town is now a ghost town, but not because of some sudden disaster.
What happened then?
There's been a fire burning underground there for over 60 years.
A fire underground for 60 years?
Listen, it started in an abandoned coal mine back in 1962. They think it was a trash fire that accidentally ignited a vein of coal.
So, like, the whole town is built on top of this burning coal mine?
Pretty much. And anthracite coal, which is what's burning, it can burn for a really long time at super high temperatures.
Oh, wow. That's a bit unnerving.
It is. And the effects have been pretty devastating. Toxic fumes, sinkholes, roads, and buildings collapsing. It basically became too dangerous to live there.
So everyone had to evacuate.
Over time, yeah. As the fire spread and things got worse, people started leaving. By the 80s, most of the residents had moved out, and the government started buying up properties.
So now it's just an empty town with a fire burning underneath.
Pretty much. A ghost town shrouded in smoke. It's a stark reminder of the power of nature and how even the best intentions can backfire sometimes.
It really makes you think about the risks that come with our reliance on fossil fuels.
It does. Centralia is a powerful case study in how important it is to balance industrial development with protecting the environment.
Yeah, it's like a warning sign for the future.
It is. And it's interesting how Centralia has become more than just a town. It's like a symbol, a cautionary tale.
Right. People are drawn to it, fascinated by its story.
Exactly. It's a pilgrimage site for people interested in environmental issues. From a bustling coal town to a cautionary tale, it's a pretty complex story, isn't it?
It is. Okay, so what's the last stop on our ghost town tour for today?
Before we wrap up, we're heading to a place that offers a different perspective on abandonment and resilience. Kayaköy in Turkey.
Kayaköy.
It's also known as the Ghost Village, and has a story that's closely tied to political upheaval and cultural identity. Imagine a village nestled in the hills of Turkey, once home to a thriving Greek Orthodox community.
Sounds peaceful.
It was, until the early 20th century. That's when a series of events, including the Greco-Turkish War and the population exchange between Greece and Turkey, led to its abandonment.
So they were forced to leave their homes.
They were. It's a reminder of how political conflicts can reshape whole communities, uprooting people from their homes and their way of life.
It's a sad but important reminder of the human cost of war and conflict.
It is. Kayaköy's story is tied to that turbulent history of the region, a history of conflict and displacement. The village was originally inhabited by Greek-speaking Christians, going all the way back to the Byzantine era. But after World War I, when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, tensions rose between Greece and Turkey.
And that led to the war.
Yes, the Greco-Turkish War from 1919 to 1922. And after the war in 1923, there's a forced exchange of populations between Greece and Turkey. Millions of people were uprooted from their homes.
So the people of Kayaköy were caught in the middle of this larger political conflict.
And they were forced to leave their homes, their lives behind.
What a heartbreaking story.
It is, and it raises questions about cultural identity and how hard it can be for different groups to coexist in places with a history of tension.
For sure. So what happened to Kayaköy after everyone left?
It stands today as a reminder of the past. The houses, the churches, they're all abandoned but preserved. It's a museum, a historical site now.
So it's like a snapshot frozen in time.
Exactly. It makes you think about how we handle difficult histories, how we preserve cultural heritage, how we learn from the past.
It's about more than just the physical buildings, isn't it? It's about the stories they hold.
You got it. Okay, so let's recap. We've explored 11 ghost towns, each with a unique story. We've seen the chilling aftermath of a nuclear disaster, the political stalemate frozen in time, the haunting legacy of war, the echoes of lost civilizations, the recent tragedy of conflict, the slow-burning environmental disaster, and the poignant reminder of forced displacement.
Wow, that's a lot to process. Each one a reminder of how fragile our world is and how much history is hidden in these abandoned places.
They really are. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's worth thinking about what connects all these places? What can we learn from them, from these echoes of the past?
That's a good question. What stands out to you? It really hits you looking at all these ghost towns, how temporary everything is. You know, these were once booming cities, centers of trade, industry, all that. And now, nothing, just empty shells, reminders of what used to be.
Yeah. It makes you realize even the biggest, most bustling cities, they could all just vanish someday. It's like a warning sign.
It is a bit of a wake-up call. Makes you think twice about the choices we make, you know, and how they could impact the future.
Absolutely. I mean, the environmental consequences, the potential for conflict, all of it. It's all right there in those ghost towns.
Yeah. Lessons we should be paying attention to. But it's not all doom and gloom, is it? There's also a sense of hope there, I think.
Yeah, I see that too. Those people who lived in these towns, they went through so much they had to adapt, start over.
They show us that even when things fall apart, people find a way.
Resilience.
Yeah.
It's a powerful thing. And maybe, just maybe, these ghost towns can inspire us to think differently about how we build our communities. Make them more sustainable, more resilient, more ready for whatever the future holds.
Exactly. Learn from the past. Build a better future.
And remember that the places we live in, they're more than just bricks and mortar, right? They're filled with stories, memories, lessons, all of it shaping who we are.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we wrap up our journey through these 11 ghost towns, I hope you're walking away with a sense of wonder, maybe a little sadness, but also a deeper understanding of just how strong and resilient humans can be.
I know I am. It's been a fascinating deep dive. And, for me, it's not just about the sadness of what's lost. It's also about the hope that comes from learning from the past. So we can create a future where these abandoned places are reminders of choices we made, lessons learned, not regrets.
Well said. And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has you thinking. Maybe it sparked a curiosity to explore other abandoned places or uncover hidden histories in your own backyard. Maybe it's even inspired you to take action, make a difference in your community.
Whatever you take away from this, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep imagining. Because the stories of these ghost towns, they remind us that even in the face of loss, there's always something to learn, something to discover, and something that can inspire us to build a brighter future.